at 5 o'clock. Before we start the meeting, I'm going to do a bit of a shout out to one of our counselors, Mr. Oren Ford. He just received the 8-year long-term service award from ACCPA. And so Oren has done a great job of organizing and chairing the annual conference. And he's been a director of the organization since 2017 and worked his way up to vice president and now president. It's clear that he's doing a really good job, and we wish him many more years of success on that board. Very nice to see us recognized. Thank you. Okay, moving on, the adoption of the agenda. Are there any additions or deletions?
None, your Madam Mayor.
Thank you. I have a motion to accept that, please.
I move that council adopt the agenda of the May 11th, 2026 regular council meeting as presented.
All those in favor? And that is carried. Adoption of minutes, the minutes from the April 27th, 2026 regular council meeting. Do we have any changes on that, or is someone willing to? Okay, Councillor Forsyth.
Move the council adopt the minutes of the April 27th, 2026 regular council meeting as presented.
Thank you. Number 4, public. Oh, what am I doing? All those in favor of the motion on the floor? I'm getting a little ahead of myself here. That is carried. Public hearings, there are none. And we'll move on to number 5 with our delegation from Alberta Transportation and Economic Corridors, Derek Young, Regional Director, and Patrick Labbe, Bridge Manager. Please approach the bench and you can sit at the front table there. Do you have a slide deck or you just, okay.
No.
So
The cord, the little black.
you can begin whenever you like.
Okay,
Thank you.
perfect. You buy one at ACC.
All right, well, thanks very much for having us, inviting us to council today. Always appreciate the opportunity to meet with you folks and talk about, lots of things that are going on. We've got lots of activities in and around the Peace River town site and will impact you guys. And so happy to kind of come and give that update and talk about kind of some of the things that have happened in the past as well. So I guess for me, my name is Derek Young. I'm the Regional Director for Transportation Economic Corridors in the Peace region. I'll hand it over to Patrick here.
Nice to be here as well. And it's Patrick Labbe. I'm the Bridge Manager for the Peace region. The projects before bridge.
Yeah, maybe I'll start with some road stuff and then we'll get to the bridge topic, which I think is kind of, well, that's the big news, right? There's some other big news too that I'd like to share. So I'll start with the road projects. And I wanted to talk about 744. So that's the highway that comes through Peace River. We started up on the top, kind of closer to Mary Rain, and did an overlay through there. And collaborated with the town on that work. And I think the project went really well. I think we were even able to add some additional work that the town wanted done. And from our perspective, it went really well. There's some warranty work that's happening this year, and that should all wrap up this year with the project kind of finalizing. So from our perspective, that particular partnership that we had with the town worked really well. Sometimes they can be tricky because the work that the town needs is different, quite a bit different than the work that transportation typically does. And it can trip up our contractors, but in this case, it was all similar work and worked fairly smoothly for sure. So I wanted to thank you guys for that opportunity and how well that worked out. And we're working on another one. So we're going to be working on an overlay on 743s from Highway 2 to Highway 986. So that's the Weberville Road or the DMI Road or whatever generation you're from, you'll remember that name. So that's an overlay project. We're going to be doing some work on the intersection at Highway 2 and Highway 744 they don't really line up that well, when you're crossing across. So we're looking at that stuff to make any tweaks and improvements where we can to make improvements. And so with that, I think there's some additional work on some local roads that we're including in that project as well. So again, looking forward to that collaboration and that opportunity to work with you guys to deliver projects. As those things come forward, we'll definitely reach out to administration and say, hey, we got some more projects. Is this something not only for notification, but to see if there's opportunity to collaborate. So, and then of course that brings us to the big news is the work on the bridge. The Arch Bridge has resumed from our pause, and so I'm really excited about that. I think it's really great to see that it's a local contractor who's also employing lots of local contractors from Peace River to complete the work. And so RD Rigging is from Valley View, and they've got Armstrong's on as a sub, and there's a number of local contractors who are participating in that work. So I think that's I think that's wonderful to see that kind of stuff. You know, it's can be hard for some contractors to see somebody from Edmonton or whatever show up to do work that they're capable of. So you know, not something we can control, but happy to see when it happens for sure. And so Patrick's here to kind of, he's the expert, knows kind of the details and that kind of stuff. So I'll let him kind of highlight the project, and then we can ask some questions, I guess. Open the floor to you guys for some questions.
Yeah, so like Derek said, RD Rigging is there's a steel contractor going on board on a project in or around in our neck of the woods. These are the guys. They're highly reputable and they're great to work with. They put their best foot forward. You know, you're getting a quality product. Like you mentioned, there's a bunch of local guys, Griffin and Armstrong. Yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah.
So like I was saying, there's Griffin and Armstrong Construction that are both involved, both local, both very involved in all their bridge activities in the region. It was great to see them get on on a major project like this to expand on their opportunities. Honestly, I don't have a ton as far as the update goes. Over the next few months, you can see a pile of activities. Obviously, scaffold is ongoing. We're halfway across the bridge. We've got to get all the way across. Through that, there's going to be some floor system repairs below the deck. A bunch of connections need to be refurbished. One big milestone that occurred last week was we managed to get access into the ties. So, you know, the history of this bridge and the challenges that were faced round one, well, that was one of them. And we managed to get in there now, and it looks a lot better than what was initially foreseen. So we're in a good spot there. Painting is a very, very big scope on the bridge. We're not painting the whole ties, but there's a lot of touch points and a lot of there were some issues in the past that need to be corrected here. Span 6 specifically needs forecast that one to be fully repainted. And then the other major milestone that you'll be seeing this summer is the hanger replacements, right? So those suspended pipes that are dangling from the arch down to the arch tie. We're forecasting to see one span fully done. According to the contractor's initial schedule, span 6 should be fully done starting in August. So by the end of the summer, early fall, we should be basically buttoned up on span 6. Next year, we'll be tackling the other 3 spans. As it stands, we're still forecasting completion in the fall of 2027. They'll change there. Across it stays that way, or we can improve on that. Obviously, any schedule gains we can achieve, the better. But yeah, I just want to thank the town for your patience and your collaboration. I know the closures last month were a bit of an inconvenience, and got a lot of questions about what's going on there, timing and how long and whatnot. But that was critical to establish hanger lengths for fabrication purposes. So just gonna have any noise or vibration on the new bridge, and we're surveying, create a model of the new bridge. Just because the tolerances are so tight. So they did one night on the new twin bridge. Next night was on CN bridge. And then the following night was on all from the deck on the arch bridge. So anyhow, I just we wanted to provide the opportunity, provide a brief update, and just give you an opportunity to ask any questions that you may have. So it's pretty good all I had this time.
Okay, any questions? Councillor Ford.
When you mentioned the amount or hiring local, so whether it's contractor or labor, so what is the number, approximate total number of the workforce, and what is the approximate total number of locally people that are hired, whether contractors or laborers?
I don't have an exact number, but if I had to estimate right now, I mean, Artie's gonna, even was running through 12 guys. And then Armstrong, I would guess, has a close amount of that same number of staff on site. And then if Griffin's on site at the same time, just those 3, they could make up to, I don't know, 40 guys, maybe something like that on site, but I think peak manpower. Maybe 60, 70 at peak,
So 40 out of 70 are
somewhere
local
around there, don't quote me on it, but I
Close.
can ask that question, yeah,
ballpark. Thank you.
assuming they're all active on site at the same time.
It's a good number.
I think the other piece to note there is that lots of this work is really, really technical and the expertise wouldn't necessarily be available locally either, right? So those, you're gonna go from an external source for sure, but it's not something that we require to have local kind of content, and so it's nice to see for sure. And it makes lots of sense, right? There should be cost savings available to the
Yeah, I
contractor.
mean, that might have been reflected in the tender price rate, but the bidder number 2 was a fair bit higher, right? So-
And that's why I use the term, like the term laborer as well,
Mhm.
because having like 40 out of 7, that's for local people, that's good.
Yeah,
Mhm.
people are invested in the project, right? Like. So I think that should help for sure, yeah, for sure.
Any other questions? I just want to clarify, it. So, Mr. Young, you're the regional director, so you'd be working out of like Edmonton or,
No, here in the provincial
here.
building.
okay, and the same?
Yep.
Oh, really?
So our regional, yeah, that's maybe a good thing I should touch on. So the province of Alberta is split up into 4 regions: Peace Region, North Central Region, Central Region, and Southern Region. They're all kind of set up more or less the same. Some are a bit bigger. North Central is a little bit bigger because they have Fort McMurray involved, and so they have a few more staff. But basically, we all have operations staff, so those folks would deal with the plowing and the painting and the pothole filling. We have bridge staff, and Patrick's one of the 4 bridge managers across the province, so they each have construction or bridge engineers and bridge technologists that they work with to develop and kind of get these projects out the door. We also have a construction group, so those guys are similar to the bridge group, but they are dealing with roads almost exclusively. There is work between the 2 of them, but they're kind of our construction departments. And then we have an infrastructure department, and that those guys work on development permits, long range planning, our programming for our roads. So they're gonna set the program for the next kind of 15 years in terms of what roads we're gonna overlay next and those kinds of things. And they also deal with grants as well. So they work quite closely with municipalities on any grant applications that are coming or ongoing or those things. So we have an office, our head office is in Peace River here in the provincial building. And so that's where the bulk of our staff are. The next biggest office is in Grand Prairie, and that's primarily an operations office. But we do have some bridge and construction property folks there as well. And then we do have an office up in High Level where there's 2 operations folks that work there, and then 1 fella out of Fairview. So that's kind of where all of our folks are, but we're about 45, 47 people, and I think probably close to 40 of them are here in Peace River. So the bulk of our staff are here.
That's good to know. You'll be keeping an eye on the project and you'll be.
Yeah, for sure,
enough to do it.
yeah.
So you're forecasting 2027 fall, spring?
Fall.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
I think September 15th is kind of the timeline.
Yep.
Now, I mean, we're gonna do everything we can to open the bridge, right? That's mine and Patrick's. That's our number 1 focus, is to open the bridge to traffic. With renovations, you just never know, right? And so we're gonna do everything we can to minimize that. But with the focus of getting that traffic open, that's always gonna be the kind of the biggest driver for us. Safely, of course, right? We're not gonna take anybody's, but if there's something that delays us, we're gonna look to try and push it into the future years if it doesn't impact traffic, right? So again, the goal, open the road as soon as possible. And right now it's September 15th, so we're gonna hold them to that.
Okay, well, thank you. That sounds like a great date. Councillor Ford?
Yeah, just one other question, just to do with our communication. So I know there was a communique that went out about the closing of the new bridge overnight for like 45 minutes and then open for 15, la da 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 da. But I see on the signs out there now, there's another posting from a certain date to a certain date.
Yeah.
So anytime these closings are happening, are you communicating those projects to administration so they can get the communique out as well?
Yeah, that's definitely a really efficient way for us to get the message out because you have a good following of people and you have a good close connection to the public. And so we'll definitely utilize, that communication. The work that's coming up next is a seal coat. So they're gonna seal the deck. And so it won't necessarily, it'll be some delays, but it won't be stopped. We won't stop traffic on the highway. They'll do one lane at a time and just kind of alternate where the traffic is across the bridge. So, but yes, that's a good point, and I'll make sure our folks are reaching out to administration to.
Yeah, it would just be nice to have that information come to administration, because the expert in communications is just sitting to your left.
Great, yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. No, and we,
Thanks.
yeah, so yeah, we'll definitely take advantage of that.
Stuart pushed out that message on Sunday.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I guess the other thing I forgot to mention, and it related to the Archbridge project, you guys will be seeing some other work in and around that site. The outfalls coming across the twinned highway, the newly twinned highway. So these are all part of the Archbridge, but there's gonna be work zones popping up here and there around town, not impacting traffic. Other than speed reduction potentially, but just so you know, there's gonna be a few on the east side and then there's another couple on the west side, so.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions? Oh, Councilor
Just one
Parsons.
thing, you mentioned when you were talking about the milestones reached this year, you said you gained access to, what was that, sorry?
The arch tie.
There's ties,
Yeah,
okay.
so the tie is the horizontal built up member connecting the lower portion of the arches.
Okay,
So this was the part of the issues that we had initially was getting access to tightening all the bolts, but in this rehab, we also carried some corrosion repair work from what we could see from the outset from the ends during the last rehab, but after opening it up, it looks a whole lot more favorable, a lot less corrosion. We still need to get in to do the turn and nut on the arch, not the arch, but the hanger replacements. But as far as like the strengthening goes and all that, it'll be, greatly reduced from what was initially anticipated.
so what they did is, you can actually see it out there, they built a mock-up that looks exactly like the tie, and the tie is the piece that goes along beside the road on the outside that the hangers hang from. And so they had to do a demo to say, we can do this safely. If somebody was injured inside, we could get them out safely. So they had to demonstrate that through this mock-up. And then once that was done, now we can kind of move forward with, yes, if something's happened, we would be able to get that person out safe kind of thing. So it's, that's a really kind of game changer for sure.
thank you.
Okay, well, there's no other questions. Thank you for your presentation.
No problem. Thanks very much.
Very good. Thank you for taking the time. Okay, moving on to number 6, a comment from the public. We see nobody in our lonely gallery. So there'll be no questions, and we'll move on to number 7, bylaw readings with Ms. Gaydon.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Council. I've got before you tonight the tax rate bylaw for 2026. Pursuant to section 353 of the Municipal Government Act, each council must pass a property tax bylaw annually. The property tax bylaw authorizes the council to impose a tax in respect of property in the municipality to raise revenue to be used towards the payment of expenditures and transfers set out in the budget and the requisitions. So with the tax supported operating budget of 2026, council approved that on April 13th. And it included a municipal requisition of $12,889,010. So the tax rate bylaw must set out and show separately all the tax rates that are imposed to raise the revenue required. It also includes the other levies, such as the Alberta School Foundation and Northeast Housing Foundation requests. And if the bylaw is passed, we will be sending out the property tax notices mid-May-ish, depends on your definition of mid-May, after the 15th, around the 20th, in that range. But regardless, they will all be due on June 30th, as long as we get them out before the end of May. Overall, the assessment values for 2026, I've got a chart that shows some of the major classes. Overall, the assessments went up 1.9%. Residential went up a bit, industrial went down a bit. So, most of these changes are due to market conditions, a little bit of inflation, market conditions. If anybody does have any issues with their individual assessment, once the notices go out, they will be contacting the assessor. In 2026, the amount to be raised by municipal taxes increased from 12.57 million to approximately 12.89 million, which is around $319,000. I've got a couple of charts showing with our draft bylaw and the tax rates in it, the change year over year for a handful of properties. So the first table shows single family residential, and those are for one individual roll number, the 2024 assessed value with the 2025 levy compared to the 2025 assessed value and the 2026 levy. So these are all representative of specific roll numbers. And the total levy includes the municipal requisition plus the Alberta School Foundation plus the North Peace Housing. The community tax column is just our levy. So request option 1, council provides first, second, and third readings of bylaw 2188, the tax rate bylaw for 2026. This will allow the town to levy taxes to achieve the municipal requisition, and it supports the amount approved in the 2026 budget. The financial implication is that it allows the town to generate revenues to continue operations. Option 2 is that you decline for second and third reading. It will not allow us to impose property taxes. And option 3 is to provide only first reading of bylaw 2188. This would probably most likely require a change to the due date of property tax bills and the late penalty bylaw, as we are required to provide at least 30 days following the receipt of the property tax bill in order to make payment. Are there any questions?
No questions? Would there be an update for someone to put a motion on the floor? Councillor Deuce.
I would move that council give first reading to bylaw number 2188, tax rate bylaw for 2026.
Okay, all those in favor of that motion? And that is carried. Councillor Ford.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I put a motion on the floor that council provides second reading to bylaw 2188, tax rate bylaw for 2026.
All those in favor of that motion? And that is carried. Okay, Councillor or Deputy Mayor Carr.
I would move that bylaw number 2188 be placed for third reading.
All those in favor of the motion? And that is carried. Councillor Forsyth.
I move that council give third reading to bylaw number 2188. Tax rate bylaw for 2026.
And all in favor of that motion. And that is carried. So moving on to unfinished business, there is none. And we are again with Ms. Guidon for current business to write off of uncollectible receivables.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have before you a request to write off a standard receivable for $70,000. This was an item which was included in the allowance for doubtful accounts. So we expensed it as a bad debt in 2025. And basically, we do not see that we will collect it. So we would prefer to remove it off the books. So if you approve this write-off, it is in accordance with our generally accepted accounting practices. It cleans up our receivable subledger. And it eliminates the receivable and the allowance for doubtful accounts. As the bad debt expense was incurred in 2025, there's no expense implications to writing it off this year. Option 2 is that you decline to write off the receivable. And basically what it does is just leaves it on the books for us to be deal with at a later date. So, are there any questions regarding this?
Counselor Deuce?
So $70,000 is not a huge amount considering our utility bylaw rates. But what happens, or is this a bunch of small accounts or are there larger accounts or?
This is one item. We had a grant, or we thought we had a grant from a neighboring municipality to purchase a large item, and basically everybody who was involved in those discussions is no longer around, and we're not going to receive the funds that we believe that we were going to get. So we had set it up as a receivable, didn't get it, so this is one item that we're trying to clean up.
Okay.
Any other questions? Anybody want to make a motion? Counselor Deuce?
I would move that council approve the write-off of the standard receivables from customer number ending in 00001G in the amount of $70,000.
All in favor of the motion? And that is carried. Thank you, Ms. Tino.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Director Fisher with Direct Control Development Permit Application. That's number 2 under current business.
Good evening, council. So when we dealt with campground in the West Hill, we converted it to a direct control property so that council can maintain kind of some oversight and make sure that the continued use moving forward was as a campground that would provide a service to the community. But we have an application for installing basically a stage with an a cover structure over top of it. The stage proposed is really consistent with our land use bylaw, consistent with the municipal development plan, in providing a community oriented space where they can run programming at the campground. There shouldn't be any parking impacts from the development. That the people who are at the campground are already at the campground. So we have a couple of options. The council approve the development, subject to like special conditions. We've recommended that just going forward, and first special condition is mostly just for consistency and clarity, that separate development permits will be required for any future developments on the property. Any future development must comply with the land use bylaw and site relevant municipal regulations. And that the condition doesn't include any additional signage, and they would need to apply for additional sign permit if they need. We also would include, in addition to the special conditions, our standard slate of development conditions. It's just a template that goes with all development permits when we issue an approval decision. Things like, hey, you've got to go get your permits, you've got to do your land locateds. If you're working on town land, you get permission, things like that. So fairly straightforward. Option 2 is that you approve the development permit application subject to like any additional special conditions you want to impose. And option 3 would be that you don't approve the development permit. Administration's recommendation is that you approve this. And also submitted like a building permit application because the overhead structure does require a building permit. So once this is approved, or you go ahead and issue the building permit right after.
Okay, any questions? Deputy Mayor Carr.
I was approached by one of the residents that lives across the road there, and they had concerns, not so much of the stage, but I understand the noise bylaw has been waived for the after grad. And he's concerned there's gonna be a weekly party place during the summer. And will there be any consultation with these people, or is that even a reasonable concern? He's not concerned 3 or 4 events in the summer, but is it by granting this stage, are we granting them the ability to host parties every weekend there?
The bylaw, or sorry, the noise exemption is just for an event. It is not a continual exemption, right, for the grad party. This approval doesn't come with any other relaxing
Okay.
community bylaws like that, right? So if were having a special event and wanted to run it after hours or like to go past that noise bylaw cutoff, they would have to apply. And those are evaluated individually by our protective services.
And would they be consulted if say they wanted to run a party every weekend? Like would it involve consultation or at least involvement of people in that area?
I'm actually not sure of the process. I'd have to go and look at that and get back to you, but that's
Okay.
separate from
Yeah,
from this permit application.
okay, thank you.
I don't think that having a stage or not having a stage would stop them from having events. I think they would still have the event. Councillor report.
Yeah, my understanding of it, because I used to be part of Peace Fest, and even when we had Peace Fest, because it ran after 11 PM, we actually had to apply for a permit from the
Yeah.
town to extend the noise bylaw.
Yeah.
However, if they're holding an event, even if they hold an event 2 or 3 times a year, if they plan on going past 11 o'clock at night, they have to apply for a permit in order to do so.
And they have.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just a note on that, I don't think this is working. That location has requested an exemption, though it's not necessary because they are planning a couple of small concerts this summer, but intend to be within the boundaries of that existing noise bylaw. But a condition of any exemption to the noise bylaw is to inform the neighboring, any residential areas in the neighbor. And the aftergrad did so by providing a pamphlet or a flyer door to door, which has probably sparked some of the conversation, which is very good feedback and also important to consider that there is a residential neighborhood nearby. So some of that can be mitigated by direction of the sound. That was what we talked with the aftergrad of have your speakers pointed the other direction, not directly at the neighborhood. Some of those simplistic actions that can be taken to help reduce any uncomfortable situations with the neighbors. Yeah, but in relationship to this specific request, it can be addressed in other mechanisms.
Are there any other questions? Councillor Ford.
No questions, Madam Mayor, but I put a motion on the floor that council approve the development permit application number 2026-14, subject to special conditions outlined the above. That's recommended.
Here's the one, normal conditions and special conditions. Yep.
Subject to standard development permit conditions and special conditions outlined above.
All in favor of the motion on the floor? And that is carried. So next up, we have again with Director Fisher, our 2026 Spring Meltdown financial update.
Yeah. So
Exciting stuff.
it was a really exciting spring breakup this year. So I've got a little bit more kind of information here because there's a lot of things that kind of happen in the background that the community doesn't see. So this is an opportunity to share some of that. And then there's a little bit about what it's cost so far at the very end of the report. It's like 4 or 5 lines. So just a heads up, like we're going back, this year at the beginning of April and at the beginning of March, I think we started conversations with the province in early March about what this breakup could look like and what our big risk factors would be going into it. We had conditions that could basically contribute to the river, on the river, like Peace River itself. So those were a very high level of remaining snowpack in the region. And I think the maps that we were provided initially in April were like 400% of them. We were jokingly called it the area around Mary Wren as the Mary Wren Glacier when we started breakup this year. And then a lot of ice on the Peace River. And if you were watching those ice reports that were coming out, or as we were sharing them, the ice was really growing towards the BC border until the end of March. And that's when it started to melt towards town here. So that's a lot of ice. It's like almost a record year in terms of how far that ice grew and how late it existed. And the only thing missing was really a sustained period of sustained high temperatures, right? So double digits for a bigger period of time. And luckily, not so luckily, we didn't see it. We had a really long and cold spring, certainly much later than we would normally see. We were doing snow removal until April 10th. For example, like a week before we kicked off breakup, we were still doing some snow removal in a couple of areas because we had like some big ruts and stuff on the road. And we were getting a lot of complaints about them. So we started talking with the province and coming up with some plans sort of in the beginning of March. The official breakup kind of started off on April 18th with an ice run on the Smoky River. So what happened is basically the ice started to break up at Watino, and it kind of came down as a dynamic breakup towards the town of towards the mouth of the Peace River. It ended up jamming that evening somewhere between like around Murphy's Flats, just a little bit downstream of that. And so that kind of kicked off our event. So as of that point in time, we had staff monitoring 24/7, watching to see what happened. We had provincial staff coming into town. They were in town on the 19th and flying daily to check out conditions starting for them. That ice jam on the Smoky eventually pushed its way into the mouth of the Smoky River. Forecasting kind of showed that the peak of the snow melt from the warm temperatures would peak around the 23rd. And then kind of taper off with a cooler weather forecast. If that temperature forecast had been higher, that peak might have been a little bit higher than we saw initially. We also saw ice jams form on the Heart River in multiple locations. Kind of in town here at the 12-foot at Davis Event Park and up near Highway 2, up near Nampa, where the Heart River goes under the highway. There's a jam that formed over there. We had a lot of provincial support here. We had the modelers, the ice modeling team, the ice forecasting team. We had 2 members on staff in town here continuously to answer questions and provide advice. Basically, their indication was that the Heart River ice jam and the Smoky River ice jam by themselves probably weren't going to be a bit of an issue. But if the Smoky River one pushed into the Peace River and the Heart River one came down a little bit further, a combination of the two could create some localized flooding on the Heart River. So that's when we issued the evacuation alert, sort of late in the afternoon on April 23rd. That alert kind of was timed so that it was before all of the peaks that we were seeing. Normally we see the melting water peak around midnight-ish, sometimes a little bit earlier, sometimes a little bit later, depending on temperatures, and then kind of come down from there. And kind of as people were getting home, so that they knew if they were in these affected areas, they could go in and get ready ahead of time. The alert was based on the expectation of localized flooding. We were not in a situation where we would be expecting widespread flooding of like the north end or downtown unless some other condition happened. So that's why when the alert went out, it was just for the areas south of the Heart River there, the 3 blocks or 2 or 3 blocks, and then the downtown area. Realistically, it probably would have been just around the bridge if we had any issues. We also requested the council declare sole a state of local emergency during the process. Just that way, if we had to escalate, we could move fairly fast. So we didn't have to come to you and ask for an additional power late at night. We did it kind of at the same time frame. I don't have it here, but we did capture a video of one of these ice jams kind of consolidating. And this is the one that we captured was a video of one on the Heart River. Basically, we have footage of it starting to move, pushing down around like the CN bridge where it crosses down into like the park area and stopping by the pedestrian bridge. And that whole process was over minutes. We're not talking hours or anything like that. That process was happening very, very quickly. So we felt it was fairly prudent to be able to act in a quick manner if we needed to make sure that people were safe. That's our number one priority. Emergency. Cooler weather and the fact that we would have passed the modeled peak led to us kind of lifting that next afternoon. It was a bit slower than we wanted. We had to get the language just right. They're not supposed to go out and broadcast intrusive for the evacuation alerts where it sends the alarm onto your phone, just if we're doing the order. So it created a bit of tension that we had to navigate and make sure that we were on the right language for the province after that point. So there was a bit of a delay sending the alert the next morning, and that's why it is. We just needed to make sure that the language was correct and we had to bounce it off the province before we pushed it out again. It's obviously a cost to being in this heightened state and ready to respond. Just for some informational things on the things that we had kind of in place here. We did have staff monitoring conditions 24/7. Like I said, it kind of kicked off on the 18th. And as of the 19th, we were full on. At its peak, there were about 94 people working in the emergency management agency for the town. That includes contractors, that includes, we brought in people from Northern Sunrise County. We had firefighters staged and ready if we did have to do any kind of evacuation. We also had technical search and rescue and regional search and rescue teams in town as well. We needed them. We had members of the RCMP working in our office with our operations team coordinating. We had fire equipment staged on the south end in case there became any access issues due to any kind of localized flooding, so we could maintain critical municipal services. Our public works team had equipment staged. They were monitoring drainage issues. All the storm gates were closed at one point in time, and so they were running around opening things up and making sure things were draining properly. And again, that peak is happening at midnight. After midnight, they were out until the runoff stopped raining. We had contractors staged at Pat's Creek at the mouth to make sure that we weren't having jams form, or that we were getting debris out of there before it could create any issues in the viaduct. We had vac trucks staged during peak runoff hours to make sure that we could get the equipment after hours. I don't know if you've ever tried to call a vac truck in an emergency. But oftentimes the drivers are hour out ahead of time, so we just pre-booked them and made sure that they were lined up so that if there was an issue, we could get some service outside of our own truck, and our own truck is obviously ready to go as well, right? So if there were multiple issues, we could respond accordingly. Our community services department, as soon as that alert was issued, they also set up a reception center, made sure that we had staff to manage it. Again, it was all ready to go. We didn't have to use an evacuation order, but if we did, we were ready to respond. We had busing organized for anybody who couldn't, who was under an evacuation order if we had to issue one, but didn't have transportation. We had busing arrangements lined up. We had additional flood response purchased. That was going to stay. That's going to stay. It's our own equipment. We had additional flood response equipment purchased. So we have water gates as well as the Tiger Dam that we own, and sandbags. We had 2 teams of search and rescue in town, and we had another 3 teams on standby if we did have to engage in 2 evacuation work. We had the provincial flood trailer staged at the town shop. We had AMA field officers, river forecasting team, environmental protection officers, water treatment specialists. The province made sure that we had a lot of resources for whatever problem kind of popped up if we needed. It was really, really impressive. We did have a couple of landslides as well. We had one in Lower West Keys. We still have a lane closure working with a consultant to figure out what we need to do to fix that. That opened fully. And then we had an issue with the school, dealt with it insufficiently, so we can open that up for now. We also had generators on site for critical town staff facilities. Again, staged at the public workshop, ready to deploy if we needed them, so we didn't have to hunt. This year, for the runoff event, the spring meltdown is we dubbed it internally. We spent about 203,000 to date. That includes contractors, that includes equipment, that includes staff overtime during, a period there. And depending on what's required for fixing up that road to Lower West Peace, I know. So, as soon as I know what I'm doing there, I'll let you guys know. But again, this is just for information. I just wanted to share, right? Like, obviously there's a cost. This is not a normal year. This is not a normal amount that we would spend. To provide some transparency.
Any questions? Councillor Ford.
Mike doesn't work, so I'll just speak loud. So we had a bit of a debrief about this event at our RCMP advisory committee meeting, our last one. And just a huge shout out to town administration and everybody involved in the event. The feedback coming from members of the RCMP advisory committee were really good. Our seniors committee, who lives in that area, was super impressed about the proactive response rather than a reactive response. The fire department one thing that was commented was fire department members and other members going door to door to talk to people about the alert. But the other thing that we did hear was the probably the most prepared that the town has ever been. So huge shout out to admin and everybody involved in that event.
Director Fisher, in your opinion, how do you feel it went?
I feel like we were prepared to deal with the hazards that we could have seen this year. I felt it was really, really impressive to see. The town staff worked so hard. We still have to do like a full debrief internally as part of like activating our ICP and the legislation and products. We still have to do a debrief and some support. But I feel like we were fairly well prepared. We were well supported and we were ready to respond. And if this had happened earlier, like the big warm up had happened earlier, it would have been a much scarier and very different looking scenario. And we were responding accordingly, right? We tried to balance just saying spend willy-nilly and make sure that we had just what we need.
No, impressive, thank you. Deputy Mayor Clark.
I don't know if Councillor Ford was including this comments, but the communication, I heard a lot of very positive comments about the job we did communicating.
That was also brought up
Yeah.
in our meeting.
Yeah, that was very, very good. Good job, Stuart. Very good job.
Thank you.
Any other questions? No. Can we get a motion on the floor? Councillor Erickson.
I move that council accept the 2026 spring meltdown financial update for information.
All those in favor? And that is carried. And we are going to move on to number 4, addition to organization, protective services administrative assistant with Director Bell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
This request for decision is in follow-up to the Governance and Priorities Committee meeting conversation at a previous meeting just last week. There is an organizational staffing policy, and administration is bringing forward this request through that policy for council's consideration to add a full-time permanent protective services administrative assistant to the organizational chart under the Protective Services Department. Through that organizational staffing policy, administration is required to bring forward to council a breakdown of essentially a business case of why this position is necessary and required for a change in that structure. It provides council with some information related to how this position would fit into that structure and what would they be doing. So just quickly to touch on a couple of the items within the report, how the services and function are currently being met. Currently, areas such as invoicing, financial tracking, call tracking, data entry, meeting coordination, minute taking, report preparation, the municipal emergency plan, documentation maintenance, and court document preparation and filing are all being done by those primary positions, the fire chief and the director of protective services. The problem is you have management level positions doing administrative work, and they could be doing other things. And to be fair, it's probably not everything is getting done in a timely and efficient manner because it's just too much in those management roles. They're not able to function efficiently because they're spending a lot of time on data entry, where typically that's another position to do so. There is a significant gap in this area. Not to say the two individuals aren't doing their best, by no means, but improvement of efficiency is very important. So there is a lot of delays in administrative tasks. There's, as noted, operational inefficiency currently. And there's limited capacity. Our municipal emergency plan, as we've just illustrated in a previous report, is substantive to our community and our organization. We're probably one of the few communities that their municipal emergency plan is activated and utilized regularly. Therefore, it needs a lot of time and attention. It's not a one and done. It's an ongoing, constant process of updating, keeping resource contact information up to date, so forth and so forth. And it takes substantive amount of time. And you can't do it the month that you're preparing for a spring potential flood. It's a lot of work in months in advance of that. So one of the questions to be answered is how will service functions be reallocated and impacts in other operational units? I think I've referenced a couple of those already, but that dedicated administrative resource would allow for some reallocation of that current admin time of those positions to other duties. They definitely are spending a lot of time on invoicing, tracking, payments, that type of thing that typically a director isn't doing. Service fund, oh, sorry, I just did the same thing over again. Budgetary impacts. So the current operating budget can accommodate for this position. There are some, as the request does not specifically result in an additional financial impact and primarily serves to formalize the position into the organizational structure. Specifically, there was a bylaw type or a temporary bylaw that would just roll into the cost of this administrative position. We're already not quite mid-May, looking at halfway through the year already. So budgetary impacts will be non-existent. It'll be the 2027 budget that you would see a slight impact or request for the full year salary implication. Strategic alignment. I think this is another important component. For your protective services department to be effective and efficient, this is has been a primary function or important priority of the council something discussed just recently in your strategic plan. This fits well within that, and will only enhance and improve the service to the community and to your strategic plan. So we do provide options to council. Option one is to approve the addition of this full-time permanent protective services administrative assistant to the organizational structure under the Protective Services Department. Option two is to maintain the current structure. There's no option three. I flipped the page.
Okay, any questions, comments? Counselor Ford?
Mine's more of a comment, but I can't remember if it was last term or the term before. This was before the CPO program. I do remember that we did some structural changes where we appointed a 0.5 just to help with paperwork and administrative duties when it came to the fire department. And I do remember that being very, very helpful. I like this idea because that 0.5 I don't think is working with the fire department anymore. But with the amount of work that our CPO program is currently doing, will that allow our director, because he's doing less paperwork and all that kind of duties, would that put his basically boots on the ground in the public more than what it is?
He should be able to be more physically available to respond. Whether it always equates to that or not will depend on other workload, so I don't want to give you false hope that this means he'll be out of the office, out on the street all the time. But this would allow some flexibility in him being able to do a lot more than he currently is. Or at least not be so far behind in his administrative tasks. That he's not able to go out as often as he would like.
And the reason for that question is because I remember Deputy Mayor asking the question in council, because when that CPO position was hired, and that was in our previous term, was supposed to be at that 70-30 split, boots on the ground, 70-30% admin. So I'm hoping that this really helps out with that.
It would help. I can't speak to the percentage because I know that has come up quite often. And there seems to be a lot of misinformation and communication around that particular, where that percentage came from. So I can't specifically speak to that aspect of it. But anytime you have an administrative task taken off of somebody's desk, it allows them to spend more time and effort in other areas that are priority of the time. So you will definitely see a shift.
Well, I do, like I say, for the rest of the council, I do remember the 0.5 a number of years ago allocated to the fire department. It really did help. So this is something I would support.
Deputy Mayor?
Has Chief Harris requested any support? He has,
Yes.
like, I'm sure it'll help him, but has he
Yeah.
requested it as well?
Yes, this has
Perfect.
been coordinated with Chief Harris. Because they are also doing a lot of their own administrative
perfect.
aspects. Especially following up on the invoicing components, that becomes quite a task. Yes.
Excellent,
Yes.
thank you.
I think it's timely, given the experiences we just went through. I think that department needs its own admin. I don't think that the subject matter of protective services should be spread around. I think they need someone dedicated just to that department. Okay, so Councilor Ford.
I'll put a motion on the floor that council approve the creation of one full-time permanent protective services administrative assistant under the Protective Services Department.
All those in favor of the motion? And that is carried.
Excellent, thank you.
And again, with Director Bell, we are going to have the Peace River Municipal Library 2025 audited financial statements.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just for council's information, it is a requirement under the library bylaw, the Town of Peace River Library bylaw, to bring forward to council the library financial statements on an annual basis. So they are presented to you for your information. This is the second year that the town of Peace River auditors have been formally auditing the library. So we are responsible to do that as per the bylaw. So it's presented just for your information.
Okay, does anyone have any questions on that? Okay, could we get a Councillor Deuce?
I would move that council accept the Peace River Library Board 2025 financial statement information and in accordance with the Library Act.
And all in favor of that motion? And that is carried. Moving on to reports, we have number 10, we have Infrastructure and Development Department 2026 first quarter report with Director Fisher. Do you see the report in here? Does anybody have any questions for Director Fisher?
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor?
Maybe I should have asked the transportation guys, but I didn't think of it. The road that we're gonna resurface between, say, Walmart and Modern Paint this summer. That's correct, we are doing that.
Yep.
Is the road from the highway to Walmart, is that highway or is that town of Peace River? Because I understand highways does the snow removal and the maintenance on that road. Is that ours or is that there?
It's one of the weird overlaps.
I beg your pardon?
It's a weird overlap, right? So it's a space that the highway has claimed as a potential for a future bypass onto Highway 743. And it's being evaluated as part of there's a functional planning study that's underway. Shared a briefing with that. It's being evaluated as part of that. But it's a shared responsibility. It's technically ours. I think they use it to turn around their trucks. And they do the same with modern, like towards Modern Paint, like they go up and they turn around by the gas station. And sometimes they leave the blade down, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they throw for us.
So essentially it'll be our bill, but at the government rate.
It is, yeah.
Okay.
And like any snow removal on that piece, like that has to get pulled away. That is like.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, Councillor Ford?
I didn't see it in the second quarter priorities, but unless it's coming up in third quarter, are we looking at doing any sewer main flushing this year?
Yes, but I'm not sure what the plan is for that. It's kind of June, July are kind of the activity times to get that done. So
When would that information be available, like as into your schedule?
I don't know. We haven't talked about Wilbur. But there are a couple of spots downtown like top areas for us that they're for sure.
Okay, anybody else have any questions? If not, we get a motion. Councillor Forsyth,
I move that council accept report 10.1 for information.
all those in favor? And that is carried. Moving on to number 11, we have the council communication package. Are there any questions stemming from that? We also have the Governance and Priorities Committee meeting draft minutes. Are there any questions stemming from that? If not, could we get a motion to accept? Councillor Erickson,
I move that council accept items 11.1 to 11.2 for information.
all those in favor of the motion on the floor? And that is carried. Number 12, notices of motion. We have none. And that brings us to our closed session. We'll need someone to get us into closed here with the motion. Councillor Erickson,
I move that council move into a closed session at 6:05 PM in accordance with sections 29, 30, and 32 of the ATI Act.
okay, all those in favor of moving into closed? Thank you, and we won't be returning to live stream. Thank you everyone for watching.